Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mishnapad Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, you're going to have to give me about 1 minute. I just have to. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of November 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Text 21 on page 584. Arjuna Vacha Kair Lingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Arjuna Vacha Kailingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Page 584. Arjuna Uvacha Kairlingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Arjuna Uvacha Kailingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Go ahead, Tapas. Arjuna Vacha Kailingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Arjuna Vacha Kailingais Trin Gunan Etan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katam Chaitangs Trin Gunan Ativartate. Page 584. Anyone online? Okay. Arjuna Uvacha, Arjuna said, Kai, by which lingai, symptoms, Trin, three, Gunan, qualities, Etan, all these, Atitaha, having transcended, Bhavati is, Prabho, O my Lord, Kim, what, Achara, behavior, Katam, how, Cha, also, Etan, these, Trin, three, Gunan, qualities, Ativartate, transcends. Those qualities for Gunans, I think, will be changed to modes, but anyway, we'll talk about that. Okay. Translation. Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior, and how does he transcend the modes of nature? Purport. In this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. That is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is a very cogent question for us to also want to ask. How can we recognize how one has transcended the modes? What qualities does he or she show? What does he do? What is his behavior? And how does one transcend the modes of nature? This is a critical question. Since we've heard that if one is in the modes of nature, even the mode of goodness, then you're going to still be attracted to come back to this world. You're not in a transcendental position. Only if you're in the mode of pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva, which is a transcendental mode beyond the modes of nature, is one assured of going home back to Godhead. So how to attain that state, we'll hear that also. And the next 4 verses, Krishna will explain the qualities and the behavior. Yes, both the qualities and the behavior of someone who has transcended the modes. So that's kind of introduction there. Now let's go on. We'll just chant the first verse and I'll read the English. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prakasham cha pravitting cha Moham eva cha pandava Nadveshti sampravartani Nanavrittani kankshati. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities, such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Purport. Arjuna submitted 3 different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna first indicates that a person transcendentally situated has no envy and does not hanker for anything. When the living entity stays in this material world, embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the 3 modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, when he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature, page 586, out of the clutches of the material mode of nature. When he is actually out of the body, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. I'm going to read that again, very important. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendentally situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendentally situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body. But the transcendentally situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he has no necessity of anything material, either as stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend and who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness, and he does not hate his so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well that he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self he does not attempt anything. By such behavior one becomes actually transcendentally situated. So, and that's going to be brought home in the next verse. So all these qualities, you can see how rare they are. I mean, it's directly opposed to the material vision, which is if someone is an ordinary in the modes of passion and ignorance, maybe a little goodness, then there's always judgment going on. You know, first is there something here that I can enjoy? You see, you know, there's that kind of going on all the time. I mean, maybe I can enjoy that or this. And the material energy is always ready to entice you. And I always bring up this last night I said the same thing about advertisement. Advertisement is a special agent of Maya, where it's more focused on trying to attract you into the enjoying mood, you see. And so but you can imagine if you're always enjoying within. There's this nice verse in the 5th chapter, just before my favorite verse. What is it? If I chant the other verse, I'll probably get the first verse. Yehi samsparjita boga dukkha yonaya evate ajandabanta konte anateshu ramate buddha. Intelligent persons do not take part in the pleasures which are caused by the contact of the senses and the sense objects. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the source of all misery, and they have a beginning and an end, and so the wise do not delight in them. And so, yes, the other verse now comes to mind. So how do they enjoy? If they're not enjoying the ordinary sense gratifications, gross and subtle, where do we find the enjoyment? Bayasparsheshu asaktatma, vindityatmadiyat sukham, sab brahma yoga yuktatma, sukham akshayam asnute. Now that key phrase, Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. So this linking the soul to the Supreme Brahman, that's Krishna, through the process of yoga, you see. That's where the pleasure comes. We have to remember that we have this ocean of unlimited pleasure in our heart. We just have to learn how to access it. We're always looking outside, and that's frustrating because the senses are obviously limited. And we can only enjoy, if we can enjoy, sometimes it's just suffering, but if we can enjoy for a limited amount of time. And why does it say that is the source of all misery? Because, number one, you know, especially in this age, you're bound to overdo it, you know. Oh, if one pill makes me high, maybe 2 pills will make me higher, you know, or cause some horrible disease. So that's the one problem. But the main thing is that it comes to an end. We know that any brother, you're taking a nice feast of prasadam, but eventually you say, hey, no more, please, right? So there's obviously limit. There's a time limit. There's a physical limit. The sense is limited. And so you want to keep enjoying, but you can't. Not in that way anyway. So then there's an end to it. And eventually the body becomes unable to enjoy that way. You know, I mean, there's a epidemic of obesity in the Western countries, the wealthier countries, because of all the junk food. You know, the guys, there's a big class of people known as demons, basically, who their whole focus is how can I make more and more money, you know. And now with the science of food production, you know, everything, we can engineer it this way, that way, this way, that way. So it's more or less addictive, It's more like the, yeah, it tastes good. I like to give the example because I go shopping. You know, we're in the opposite of a food desert here, you know. Like you go to the poor section of town, they can't easily get to a place where they can buy fresh fruit and vegetables, you know. But they can go and buy the highly processed food. The Doritos and all these things, they're always available. So you go to Ralph's, a whole aisle of just snacks, you know. And if you go out one aisle here, a whole aisle of intoxicating beverages. None of that is good for you, right? And so the pleasure of, you know, eating that, yes, there's some pleasure. They engineer the pleasure, but then it's going to make you sick. It's going to make you fat, more likely to get diabetes, you know, because you become addicted to the food. They engineer it that way. So this is the world we live in. So how in this modern age, when, you know, there's the senses are pulling you in all directions all the time, how can we get to this point where you're aloof? You know, you got stone and gold is the same. Yes, you're eating, but your eating is in the spiritual way. You know, what does Krishna want? Let me prepare it with love and devotion, or go to the temple. You know, and the food is not only nourishing and not, you know, full of all, you know, the proper ingredients, but it connects you with Krishna. There's a spiritual potency to it, for sure. So that's the idea. And one who has transcended the modes, one of the most obvious symptoms here, or qualities, is what Prabhupada would call equipoise. You know, this famous Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gabihastini Shuni Chaiva Shapakacha Pandita Samadarshina. So someone who is a real pundit, learned scholar in devotional service, he sees everyone the same. The example, the learned and humble Brahman, Brahmane Gabihastini, the cow, the elephant, the dog eater, sees them all with an equal eye, because you see the soul. You're seeing the living entity that, okay, there's a soul, they're the same, just like me. Not the externals, you know. And so you're living on that plane. That's what it means to be transcendental to the modes of material nature. And even, you know, sama dukkha sukha swasta, steady in happiness and distress, seeing gold and pebbles the same, all these different things. So you can see how rare that is. I mean, you know, how do you find that? You don't find that in people. Anyone who's living a material life cannot be in that position. There's always the judgment, you know, is this advantageous to me? Is that, did that person just insult me? Oh my God. And like, you know, it goes on every day. And, you know, am I still able to go to work? You know, I have to have these 3 jobs, otherwise I can't pay the rent. You know, that's such anxiety. So if one is transcendental to the modes, you live as simply as possible. You know, you rely on Krishna, you associate with devotees, and in this way you're much more peaceful, and you can appreciate in the process of Krishna consciousness, the holy name, all of these things become your lifeline. You know, they become so. You know, you read the writings of the Goswamis. I gave the other day one of Sanatana Goswami's verses about how he's appreciating the holy name in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, a very nice book. So he says, Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam Morare Vidamita Nija Dharma Dhyana Pujadi Yatnam Sakatapi Padigitam Shraddhaya no Katamapi Sakadatam Muktidam Praninam Yad Padamam Amritamekam Jivanam Bhushanam Me. Now there's that story, you know, where a friend, someone heard that the Sanatana Goswami has a touchstone. Probably would call it a touchstone. If you look up touchstone in the dictionary, you'll find it means something else. It means something that when you touch gold to it, and it's to figure out if it's really gold. But touchstone, Prabhupada says, or in other words, the philosopher's stone. Philosopher's stone is what it's called. It means that it's a stone thought to be mythical, but not really. That you touch something to it and it turns into gold. So he heard that he had that, and so he was very interested to see it, you know. And so he asked Sanatana, goes, oh yes, I have it. I keep it over there in a little ditch there where I throw my old prasadam plates. Oh really? So he goes over into the little trash heap, digs over, and there's this touchstone, you know, he gets it. So you think he's
he's set for life now. He's got the touchstone. And he says, and so he asked Sanatana Goswami, he said, do you want it? He said, sure, can I have it? Oh yeah, no problem. So he gets it and he starts walking away and he gets, 100 yards, I don't know how far he gets. He says, oh, wait a minute. If he kept this touchstone, which he could have unlimited gold from, in the trash heap, he must have something even more valuable. So maybe I'll go back and see if I can get that too, you see? So he goes back. And he tells Sanatana Goswami and Sanatana says, yes, I have something even more valuable than a touchstone. Can I see it? No. First, you can have it, but first you have to take the touchstone and throw it into the Yamuna. He was chanting on the banks of the Yamuna. So this is the test. Does he have faith? So he was pious. So he said, okay, I'm going to take a chance. Threw it into the Yamuna. And then Sanatana Goswami initiated him with the holy name. He gave him the holy name. Hare Krishna mantra. Now we can see, why is that more valuable? Well, gold, basically you can have wealth. If you have a whole pile of gold, I can buy so many things. But that's the modes of nature. That's the mode of passion. That's not anything transcendental. But if you practice chanting nicely under the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, the Shastra, then you can achieve something that's way more valuable than that. Eternal life. A life of Satchidananda life in the spiritual world. You can purify the heart, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, so that you can finally see who you really are, and you can become more and more attracted to Krishna, and you can learn to enjoy the chanting of the holy name, which is Namananda Rupam, the very form of bliss. This name of Murari, name of Krishna. And it said, what it'll do if you get serious about chanting, it will cause you to be disinterested in all of this other, worshiping the demigods and all these other rituals, who cares? And then if someone chants it once purely, then you get free of all your karma liberation. But then the real value is that it ultimately invokes the pure love of God, pure prema. So he says, Padamam Amritam Ekam, it is my ultimate and supreme nectar, this holy name. Padamam Amritam, Jivanam, my very life, Bhushanam, my only ornament, like that. So he's appreciating the holy name like that. So it's important to glorify the holy name and to hear descriptions of it. Because we're chanting, more or less chanting. Are you also chanting? You're just interested. Your experience a little bit with Hare Krishna? Yes, sorry. So everyone here is chanting. Even Mukunda, you chant. I don't think you chant 16 rounds. He was sleeping in japa. But you just follow your sister. I'm sure she's chanting more than you. She'll gradually chant more. You'll chant more. Then eventually you'll chant 16. But the point is that it's open to everyone. It's free. You see, what is the price? Your faith in it. If you have faith in it, then you can appreciate it. So and you get all these, these wonderful qualities. Steady, situated equally in praise and blame, honor and dishonor. He treats alike a friend and enemy, renounced. So it reminds me, there's a verse, because a lot of this can be grouped under this phrase of vairagya. Vairagya means free of material desire, of raga. It's a prerequisite for getting liberation, because it's that raga, that material attachment, that keeps us here. It's likened to knots in the heart or ropes in the heart tying you here. So they have to be cut. So right near the beginning of Bhagavatam, we see the sages ask Sutta Goswami, what is the supreme dharma by which the soul can really be happy, can really be resituated in his natural bliss? So he has this whole series of verses, which I think I mentioned last night to some degree. But right near the beginning, a very pertinent verse. So it begins with this key verse. Savai pangsam parodharmo yato bhaktir alhokshaje ahaitu kya pratayatha yayatma suprasiditi. So that suprasiditi is the Atma can be superseded, completely satisfied by performing this dharma, parodharma, supreme dharma. What is it? You can guess. It's Krishna consciousness, bhakti. So actually, dharma is that an activity that evokes a certain state or produces a certain result. The classic thing is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So if you're following the material dharma, what is it? The karma kanda section of the Vedas, that where you learn how to nicely worship different devas in order to get heavenly planets or to be successful in business, whatever like that. There's a whole section of it. So that's dharma. That dharma gives you kama, gives you artha, gives you wealth by which you can satisfy your material desires. You see, so that's there's all sorts of restrictions. Krishna says these people are pious, right? Chaturvada bhajante mam jana sukritanarjuna. He says there are 4 kinds of pious people who come to me, and he names them. Arto, those who are distressed. It's a common reason why anyone goes to church or anything, because they're in trouble. Please, give me enough money to pay the rent. Please cure my child, whatever it may be. Okay, but they're pious because they're going to God. Then there's jigyasu, those who are curious. They're interested in the what's going on in that Hare Krishna anyway. They're not really serious searchers of knowledge yet, but they're curious, which is very good. They're inquisitive, you see. And then there's the artartis. Artartis means those like Dhruva. The ones who are really suffering from poverty, they're in the first category. Those who are in distress. That's a form of distress. But these are the ones like Dhruva wasn't poverty-stricken, but he was disturbed because his stepmother didn't let him sit on the father's lap and so forth. So I'll get them. It's almost like a childish thing. I'm going to get a better kingdom than my father and even my great-grandfather, Brahma. So it's almost a childish thing. That's Artarti, whose aim is wealth, not just money enough to pay the rent, but actually wealth. That's a lot of people. So that's whatever. They want that and then go to God for it. They don't go to Wall Street, they go to God, you see. And then there's the Jnanis, who Krishna praises. Oh, these are people who generally want to know about me. That's the best of the 4, So, in this Savai Pungsang Parodharma, those who, the supreme dharma is that which evokes devotion to adhokshaja. Now it's very interesting, Bhagavatam can be understood on all different levels. When the sages, when our acharyas speak about bhakti in its earliest stages, they often use this name of Krishna. It's not anything to do with this Vrindavan Leela or anything. It's adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means he who is beyond the range of the material mind and senses, which is the very definition of transcendental. You see? Ada akshaja. Aksha is the eyes or any of the senses, and ja means born. So that knowledge which is born or generated by the use of our senses and mind, this is called the ascending process of knowledge. So Krishna pushes that down. Ada, he's transcendental, all that knowledge. You can't get any knowledge about Krishna by the ascending process. It has to be revealed knowledge coming down from Krishna through the disciplic succession, the Shastra, the revealed Shastra. This is the source of knowledge that we can get. So Krishna is a hokshajo. So when that dharma which evokes devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the transcendental Lord, then there is the qualifications for what that dharma is and how it can be rendered. Ahoituki, without any material motive, and unceasing, apratiyata, without any gaps. You see, if one can generate and come to that point, then supersedity, that will really bring the soul into the realm of natural experience of spiritual pleasure, more and more and more. And the whole series of verses goes on, describing how, let's see. Yes, so then the next verse is pertinent to what we're talking about here, which is how a symptom of transcending the modes is vairagya, is freedom from material desire. You see? So that's exactly the next verse. It says, Vasudeva, that's Krishna, Bhagavati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Priyojitaha, by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, loving devotional service to Vasudeva. Then what's one of the first results? Bhagavati Bhakti Janayati. Janayati means generate, same word in English. Janayat Ashu, quickly, Vairagyam, detachment. Janayat Ashu Vairagyam, Gyanam cha yadahoitikam, and also knowledge. Knowledge and vairagya go together. I like to give this example. We had a very, very wonderful devotee living here for many years. He passed during the COVID. His name was Madhusudan. He joined in '66. He was married to Kanchan Bala for many, many years. And he would come on Sundays, and he would come, of course, on Prabhupada's appearance day. And he would cook sweet rice. He had that down, you know. I mean, he had learned years back, and he would make this exquisite sweet rice, which is a high point of the feast on Prabhupada's appearance day, Vyasa Puja day. So I like to give the example. You know, this is the example how knowledge can produce vairagya. You know, when we know, I mean, it's a common principle. You know, I remember. I'm so old that when those notices start appearing on the packets of cigarettes, you know, cigarettes, they're always unhealthy for you. But somehow the conspiracy of the doctors and the professors, you know, and the producers, they would hire doctors to say, well, it hasn't been conclusively proved yet that cigarette smoke is harmful to your health. We're still investigating it, you know. And they would get thousands of dollars from that, just saying that with their doctor's suit on. But after a while, it obviously became, there's no question about it, it's bad for you, it ruins your lungs, like that. So then they said, okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, okay, we'll put a notice on each package, warning, cigarette smoking can be, maybe they got can be hazardous to your health. Or, you know. All right, but people still smoked. They saw this, they saw it, and they said, well, maybe it won't happen to me. I only smoke 10 a day or whatever. Because they were addicted already, you know. So knowledge alone is not going to give you vairagya. You really need to get the higher taste that will obliterate the taste for the lower thing, isn't it? So that's what he's saying. Vasudeva Bhagavati, by engaging in devotional service to Vasudeva, Krishna, by chanting the holy name and doing everything we do, then naturally you'll develop detachment, aversion for the lower things, and you become more attached to prasadam and association of devotees and chanting and everything like that. So that's one of the most important first benefits of Krishna consciousness, because once again it's those attachments that keep bringing us back again and again: birth, death, old age, and disease. So when one can really at every moment taste Krishna consciousness, you know, you're engaged in some service, you're preaching, you're chanting verses, you're memorizing verses, you're playing the drum. Okay, he's a very good drum player. We didn't have a drum player this morning. Was it this morning or yesterday morning? Huh? Today, right? Who can play that beat? You know, I can play it in my own way, but if someone else is there, you know. So Mukunda, little Mukunda, he's playing the drum. It's wonderful. So you know, just singing that song. I mean, if you're absorbed in that song and the meaning of it, you don't need anything else. You say, oh, I got to go out and do this. And no. You're perfectly happy. That's why I always recommend, for all the songs that we have and everything we have, learn the meaning. The samsara prayers, we used to call them samsara prayers, the Guru Vashtaka. You know, the first verse should evoke, you know, strong feeling of gratitude for the spiritual master. Sangsara dhava nadalida, you should feel the flames, you know. Dhava nadalida loka. You know, we're burning in this forest fire, right? Dhava loka, everyone is. Sangsara dhava loka tranaya. But he's delivering because he's giving Lord Chaitanya's method. Tranaya karunya ganaganatmam, and just a cloud raining down mercy, you know. So that's the whole idea. We should be thankful, and we should want to serve and want to hear, and you know, that's the whole idea. Loka tranaya karunya ganaganat Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya, like an ocean of auspicious qualities. And, we don't sing the 9th verse, but there's a 9th verse. He wrote it as an ashtaka. I don't know, I forget the Sanskrit, I don't know if you know it. But the translation is there. If you look in the songbook, Ram Vijay, get me a songbook if you could. We have a pile of them there. And it has the translation. And you see, does anyone know what the benefit is of singing that song daily? He's looking it up. Give me it. Can you find it? Anyway, I'll get it. All right, that's Damodar Ashtaka. All right, here we go. So, it's on page 18 of this songbook. Describes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who appeared in the first half of the 17th century as a great spiritual master in Krishna consciousness, chain of gurus and disciples. He says in the 9th verse, one who with great care and attention loudly recites this beautiful prayer to the spiritual master during the Brahma Muhurta, which is when Mangalartik occurs, obtains direct service to Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, at the time of death. In other words, you go back to God just by coming to Mangalarti. Maybe we should start singing this verse, get more participants. So the point is that the process of devotional service will, as Krishna will say in the next verse, penultimate verse of this chapter, will help us to transcend the modes of nature and stay in that transcendental position where we can taste more and more and more of the nectar of Krishna consciousness and become completely averse to sense gratification. And I'll give you one verse that's quoted twice, I think, in the purports here. Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna padada vinde namanamana sadhaman yuditam rantumasit tadavadi batanari sangame smaryamani bhavati mukhavikadu sushtunishdivanangsha. Probably says, I spite upon it. I spite upon it. So this is Yamunacharya's famous verse. He had been a very brahmachari, growing up. He learned so many verses. He was super brilliant. Then he went to debate the king's main court pundit. He was known to defeat all other, comers. He was just a kid. He was, 14, 15 years old. So they said, "Are you sure? It doesn't. It looks like how you're going to." He said, "Yes, yes, yes." So I forget, it was his very clever questioning. I should really memorize it. But he defeated him, and the king had offered, if you defeat my court pundit, I'll give you half the kingdom. That's how sure he was, because he had defeated the big scholars and everybody. But Yamunacharya, because he wasn't known as Yamunacharya then, but he won half the kingdom, so now he's got half the kingdom. So he left the ashram and he became the king, grew up as a king. And he had opportunity for all kinds of sense gratification. So one day, one of his old friends from the guru's ashram dropped by, and he said, "Oh, my old friend, whoever it was, I forget his name." And so he said, "Let's go for a walk." Okay, so they walked around the grounds, and he started walking. And what he was doing was reminding him of all kinds of nectar shlokas, that they had learned in the ashram. So he started remembering those and chanting, and they just kept walking. He walked right out of the kingdom and went back and became Yamunacharya. So this is a verse describing how he feels toward when the remembrance comes back of some of the enjoyments he had. So Yadavadi Mamachetek, ever since my mind has been absorbed in Krishna's lotus feet and enjoying the pleasure of serving those lotus feet at every second. Yadavadi Mamacheta Krishna Bhadada Vinde Navanavana Sadhaman, and newer rasas taste, ever fresh taste. Rasa Dhaman Uddan Navanavana Sadhaman Uditam Rantum Asi. Tadavadi, ever since then, whenever I happen to think of my enjoyment of my harem or whatever, you say, oh, his mouth twists and Stacy spits at the thought. It's not like saying, oh, maybe I should go back to that. Say, no, because the renunciation came. So that's what we want to achieve. That's what it means to be transcendental to the modes of nature. Nothing pleasures in any of the modes, even the mode of goodness, can attract you away from the enjoyment, moment to moment, of serving Krishna internally and externally. Okay, time for the second to last verse of the chapter. Both of these verses, 26 and 27, are often quoted. And here is the culmination of this chapter. Mam chiyo vabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityayetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Purport. This verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question, what is the means of attaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions, such as Rama and Narayan. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, one can overcome them easily. This has already been explained in the 7th chapter, Daiviyesha Gunamayi. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire equality with Krishna, in terms of the qualities, not the quantity. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, and the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus the living entity in his spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues. Otherwise, there would be no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there would be no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus the qualification is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahmaiva san brahmapyeti. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.4.6. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as an individual soul. Now, just to be clear, we're already Brahman, but we forgot, and we're acting as if we were this body. That's our whole problem. We're identifying with it. So attaining, to become Brahman means to regain one's original nature, one's original Brahman nature, always. So, what was I thinking of? Yes, the second chapter, second canto, third chapter, text 10 is the famous verse, Akama sarvakamo va moksha kama udada di tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Before that verse, there's one section, there's a whole kind of a shopping list, you know. If you want a beautiful, strong body, then worship Indra. If you want a good wife, you worship Uma. And it goes on and on like that, all the different demigods to worship. And then comes this verse, and it says, whether you are free of all material desire, akama, or you desire all kinds of material things, sarva kamava, or you want moksha, moksha kama. If you're intelligent, udaradi, you will render intense, serious devotional service to the Supreme Person. Tivrena bhakti yogena, yajeta purusham param, the Supreme Person. Now in that purport, there's a very interesting statement there. Prabhupada is talking, well, what does it really mean to be desireless? you see. He goes into a comma. And he said, desireless means, now this is what Prabhupada said, but it's not there in the book now. It was a big mistake. This is a little history in book production. The first 2 cantos Prabhupada wrote in India. He actually printed the first canto. The second canto, we brought the manuscript with him on the boat. You know, then I was going to hopefully somehow get it printed in America, you see. So, but Prabhupada was so frugal that he typed out to the end and he had the lines very close together. Now, if you're going to edit, you have to have room to make those red marks in there, you know. So the first job that Hayagriva had to do, besides he's editing the first canto, but to retype the second canto. So he's retyping the whole thing, you know, with enough room to edit. But he made mistakes in typing. So one of the mistakes he made in this purport, the second paragraph, what does a comma mean? So Prabhupada said a comma being free of material desire means to be not to be desireless, but to take to take pleasure only in giving pleasure to the Supreme Lord. You see, but he didn't type it that way. He said that we regard the Supreme Lord as our only source of pleasure. Oh, wait a minute! It was all about you taking pleasure in giving pleasure to the Lord. And he probably even quoted this wonderful little Sanskrit line from the Sandarbhas. It may be part of a verse or a prose, Jiva Goswami. And I memorized it as soon as I read it. It's so concise. It's kind of a concise version of Anyabhilashita Shunyam. There's a verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, some of you heard. The definition of what we're trying to do, pure devotional service. So that verse goes like this. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma jnanabatam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttama bhakti. Anya abhilashita shunyam, being devoid of any other desire other than to serve Krishna. So he gives a little list of possible jnana karma jnanabatam. Avritam means that your avritam means to cover. You can be performing devotional service, but it's contaminated, covered by material desire. You know, I want to become a guru, so I have a lot of disciples, and then I can really do. In other words, have a material desire like that, rather than I want to please Krishna by giving Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. That's pure desire, because it's pleasing to Krishna. So, and everything that you do is done to favorably serve Krishna, not just thinking of him, because Kamsa was also thinking of Krishna at every moment. He was scared stiff, he couldn't forget him. That's not bhakti, But he did all right. He got liberation, but we don't want liberation. So here's the little phrase, and I can show it to you. Here's the ideal: Padama Purusha. Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam. That's the whole phrase. It gives a whole definition of pure bhakti right there. Bhajaniya, the worshipable, Padama Purusha, that's Krishna, Supreme Person. Bhajaniya Padama Sukha Matra, only the happiness of that Supreme Person. Swasukatvam is my own happiness. You see? In other words, I don't have any separate desire, but to somehow give pleasure to Krishna. Now that can include taking nice prasadam. He's pleased when you do that, for sustenance of it. But as soon as you start eating too much, you're not just thinking of Krishna's pleasure, you're thinking. So that's a wonderful meditation. I remember memorizing it. That's one of the first verses. It's not even a verse. But what the phrase before that, you see, is to see Krishna as the only source of one's pleasure? No. To see one's pleasure only in giving Krishna pleasure. I can show you. He just transposed a couple of words, and the whole thing was changed. So that's why we got to have these editors go through these books. Otherwise, these mistakes. All right. So I don't know. We don't have time for a poem, but I'll give you one of my little sayings. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna is supreme. The aim is prem, and the way is the name. Here's one real quick one. This is a verse actually. I won't give the Sanskrit. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids and home. At every moment, see that your world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. Hare Krishna. All right, I'll go to Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll have nice darshan of Radha Giridhari.